Also, I see some of my mentor colleagues here, and my first art history mentor, and a friend from high school from my Long Island days. So, and new colleagues, thank you so much. I'm going to jump right in. Do we have to like whom we write about? I've been thinking about this question since 2018 when I sat in the auditorium of an interview by David Rubenstein with the Pulitzer Prize-winning presidential biographer Doris Kearns Goodwin. Goodwin had just published this book, Leadership in Turbulent Times, about the sense of moral purpose shared by 4 U.S. presidents. At a certain point, Rubenstein asked her something along the lines of, would you ever write about the darker figures of history? To which Goodwin replied, and I'm paraphrasing, something like, oh no, I have deep respect for my colleagues who write about Stalin and Hitler, but I have to like whom I write about. The comment struck a personal chord with me because while I don't write about Hitler, I do write about an artist who supported him. We're looking at a picture of the painter Pyke Koch, Dutch, born in 1901, died in 1991. Taken in 1933, he is doing the Roman salute with his left hand, and in his right he is holding a broom, which was the symbol of Dutch fascism. So I left wondering, what was Goodwin's trying to say? Do I have to like Pyke Koch in order to write about him well? To like means to find something enjoyable or satisfactory. We take pleasure in it. So we could say without surprise that we like this drawing of a tulip or this painting of a windmill. But not all art is meant to be liked. So could we say, for example, that we like this painting by Pyke Koch from 1931? Or this one? Now, I don't know about you, but if someone in the gallery next to me said that they liked this painting, I don't think I'd let them leave until they explained to me what exactly they found so pleasurable about it. Is it really possible to react to these two paintings, this beach scene by Isaac Israels and this decaying garden by Pyke Koch, in the same placid manner? Well, many museums and some art historians seem to think so. This is one of Pyke Koch's most controversial works, and most explicitly fascist works, his self-portrait with black band from 1937. It's in the collection of Centraal Museum in Utrecht. I have a quote here from one of the foremost scholars on Pyke Koch. He has maintained the view that Pyke Koch's work is apolitical for the past 50 years. This is what he says about this painting. The head is wound with a black band that is not quite rightly regarded as a fascist emblem. Such headbands are found in classic Greek sculpture, for example, of athletes, and as such were taken up by neoclassical sculptors in the Third Reich, but it was not an emblem with an official political meaning. So here he's using a kind of descriptive approach, where we could almost call it formal analysis, to kind of do away with meaning and symbol, and certainly with artistic intent. He's treating it a bit as a decorative work. So I would expect this approach, again, with an abstract work of art, or even a tulip painting, or of a windmill, but to do it with a painting that's so self-expressive seems to me almost like refusing to look at someone who is talking to you. Here's another painting. This Pyke Koch painted 3 times. It's called Het Uur, or H-hour in English, which is a military term for hour of attack. It's a post-war painting. Centraal Museum has one version. The Koninklijk Museum voor Schone Kunsten in Antwerp has another version. And they give very little information about this painting. In fact, in their galleries, no information at all. They have placed it in their new curation of their collection in this themed room. The theme of this room is horizons. So the only thing you're told about the painting is that with all of the other paintings from different centuries and countries, it has a horizon. And it's also displayed over this rock structure, which is not a work of art, but a playground structure for kids to play on, so to provide the ultimate pleasant experience while looking at this painting. Last year, I gave a talk at the Albright Institute for Global Affairs about my interpretation of this work, asking whether or not he is commemorating a Nazi victory near his hometown of Bake. If you'd like to watch that, ask me later, or there's the QR code here. I want to talk about these works with you today. This is Pyke Koch's 4 Seasons. He painted them between 1948 and 1951. They measure 125 by 85 centimeters per piece. They are in the collection of Museum Voorlinden in Wassenaar. If you haven't been there, it's a beautiful museum, you should go. Like the Koninklijk Museum, well, it's a smaller museum than that, but like them, they have a world-class collection, but they give very little information about their works. It's supposed to be a pleasant day out, you're supposed to like the works. So this is an example of one of their descriptions that I found. This portrait is a part of a series of 4 women. They all represent one of the seasons. Each of them shows what the new season will bring to nature. This woman is a personification of summer. On her head, she carries her grain harvest in a sickle. Pyke Koch painted it in a realistic style. Well, we can't argue with any of that. But I think if we stop treating it like a beach scene and try to go a bit deeper, we can get a lot more out of this painting if we allow ourselves to feel something a little less agreeable. So let's start. Pyke Koch painted these in 1948, as I said. He was still under investigation for collaboration with the Nazis during the Second World War. So he was disappointed by the defeat of the Third Reich, and he was very concerned about the rise of the Soviet Union. The personification of summer looks like a stereotypical babushka, or Mother Russia, which we see in these propaganda posters. And the sickle is a symbol of the harvest, but it's also part of the hammer and sickle symbol of the USSR, the sickle representing the agricultural peasants. Underneath her right arm, she carries a net. The net is a Christian symbol for Christ as the fisher of men. So in associating the symbol with Mother Russia, Koch is alluding to communism as a modern-day secular fisher of men. Now, Pyke Koch was an atheist, so this allusion is, of course, a cynical one. Behind her, we see where she has harvested her grain from. It has been stripped bare. There's nothing in her wake. We now go to autumn. Autumn's composition recalls Piero della Francesca's famous fresco, The Resurrection, which Pyke surely knew. He loved Piero's work. Her salmon tunic looks like his salmon robe, and the sky in the background, as well as the way he's painted it, kind of reflect each other. I also see a similarity between the white sleeve hanging over the grapes and the flag that Christ is carrying, and the basket and his basket-like halo. He may have looked at another painting. This is a Dutch Golden Age painting, Woman with a Large Hat from 1645. If Pyke Koch was referring to both of these works, then he has an allusion to a resurrection of a Dutch Golden Age. And he has placed this resurrection of the Dutch Golden Age in autumn. So what could he mean by that? Well, maybe he was thinking of Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West from 1918. This was a book that Pyke Koch read many times, and in fact, he was reading it again while painting these works. And in this, Spengler puts forward this idea of history wherein cultures mature like organisms, and he ascribes each phase of its maturation a season. And autumn is the season in which cultures mature to their perfect ripeness before beginning their decline. And he ascribed autumn to the 17th and 18th centuries in Western Europe, so the Dutch Golden Age. So for Pyke, autumn is not just a season, it is also the autumn of Faustian or Western man. But it's also a resurrection, not the 17th century itself. So when did that resurrection happen? Well, her right arm could be construed as a version of the fascist salute, which we see a picture of Joseph Goebbels doing this version of the salute here. What is autumn like? What makes this season so golden? Behind her, we see the structure where she's harvested her grapes from. I think Pyke Koch might have looked at Jacques Caillot's famous series, Les Grandes Misères de la Guerre, The Grand Miseries of War, published in 1633. This is called La Pendaison, and it is inscribed, in the end, these robbers, infamous and stray, hang like wretched fruit from this tree. And if you notice this hook around her waist, it gives the whole structure behind her a more morose feel. Likewise, the basket above her head, when considered together with the structure, reminds of la roue, or the breaking wheel. And the inscription refers to the Greek virgin goddess of justice, Astrea. reads, "The ever-watchful eye of Australia completely banishes mourning from a land when, holding the sword and scales in hand, she judges and punishes the inhuman thief." So Pyke's personification of autumn is, I see her as androgynous. I don't see anything sexual about her, so she could have a virginal quality. She also has a knight's or page's haircut, which associates her loosely with a sort of old elite, or perhaps an aristocratic elite. So when this elite is keeping that structure in the background in check, it has these wonderful vines that produce perfect grapes to produce wine. But if she's not there, it decays and rots and becomes bare, and we have a gallows that emerge. Behind her is a lemon tree. The lemon tree may have had a personal meaning for Koch. It makes one think of Goethe's poem Mignon. Kennst du das Land, wo die Zitronen blühen? Do you know the land where the lemons bloom? Pyke Koch's childhood home in Bayeux was named after this poem by Goethe as Villa Mignon. We see a picture of it here. So perhaps Koch was trying to say that he felt most at home in the season of autumn. We now turn to winter. We're back with the Soviet peasants. This peasant's dress recalls pictures of Soviet women in German-occupied villages in the 1940s, or from Holodomor, the Soviet mass starvation of Ukrainians in the 1930s. Pictures from these areas were distributed in the West as propaganda, so Pyke Koch could have easily seen them. Behind her is the kind of barren landscape. She's carrying these sticks or branches, and it makes me think of this painting by Caspar David Friedrich, The Abbey and the Oak Wood, of religious ruins. It gives the feeling and the atmosphere he's put her in a sense of a post-religious world, which for Koch, being an atheist and a National Socialist, was a post-racial, post-cultural world. And yet, he has depicted her as though she's a saint. She looks like she's tied to the stake. Her hands are nearly folded in prayer. She recalls a kind of Joan of Arc figure, a figure that Pyke Koch referred to in previous works as well. She has been caught by the net of the fisher of men, the modern-day fisher of men, and she's willing to give the ultimate sacrifice for a false promise of salvation. And that salvation is supposed to come in spring, but for Koch, this doesn't come. He has used his niece, Anidora, as a model. Here we see her with his son with a lamb near their home in Oudenkirchen. He may be referring to spring in the Netherlands in May. It was liberated in May by the Allies. In his personification of spring, she's wearing what looks like military burlap and a uniform that's worn. She's crying. The lamb is bleeding. It looks like it's going to die. Behind her, we see molehills. Moles are difficult to eradicate, and if left to dig like they have in this painting, they can ruin a pasture. And what should be a scenic vista behind with life is covered in gray and these endless telephone poles. In his letters after the liberation, Pyke Koch lambasted the word liberation as being nothing but deceit. It didn't bring new life, but it brought the death of culture and Europe as they knew it. Altogether, the four seasons present us with a deeply pessimistic worldview that can best be summed up by the phrase ex nihilo nihil fit. Nothing comes from nothing. The summer harvest left nothing, the winter sacrifice gives us nothing, and spring brings us nothing. Life can only be sustained in authoritarian autumn. So, I ask again, do we have to like whom we write about? I think in the case of Pyke Koch, I had to feel something very different from that. I will never forget when I first saw his work. I had never heard of him before. My previous subject had been Rubens. I knew nothing about him, but I saw this portrait of his wife in February 2017, and I felt a deep sense of being unsettled by it. I felt like it was communicating this straight to me, and it was so strong. I had never felt anything like that before, and I never forgot it, and it sustained me through 8 years of research into this artist, and all of the obstacles that come with that, from academic disputes and isolation to, I think the most difficult part is the sense of self-doubt you repeatedly encounter when you have to come to the terms with the fact that you've dedicated your career to paintings that are drawn from a well with such tainted water. Behind every object is a person, and when that person turns out not to fit into the likable frame we've put his objects and him in, what are we going to do? Are we going to forget to feel and try to squeeze him back into that frame so we can enjoy him again? Or are we going to pause and ask ourselves, what does he want to make us feel? Thank you very much.